and Germany has now the special responsibility of Libya because it has been endorsed by the Foreign Affairs Council of the EU to hold the Libyan file and to implement the Berlin Declaration together with the High Representative Borrell. And this special responsibility, there were what also Claudia explained to us, only some diplomatic progress on the follow-up committees, but the major issue of arms embargo, of ceasefire, has not been really progressed, and the interconnectivity with the other rivalries in the Eastern Mediterranean with the Libyan issue has been increased, as well as the conflict with Russia we have. When you read the joint statement, so Germany is aware about this fiction, and there has been 2 weeks ago a joint statement of Germany, France, and Italy on Libya. It is very vague, we have to say. They are calling for a credible ceasefire. They are calling for a re-architecture of the Berlin process. And here you see it's very vague that there is really the first task of the German or the trio presidency. Germany is heading or leading the EU together with Portugal and Slovenia in order to have a roadmap of the priorities until December 2021. You see that there is still a lot of hard work diplomatically to do. And in order to put this in a frame for our participants to know is foreign policy of the EU is on top 6 of the German, Portuguese, Slovenian agenda of the presidency. You could say, so foreign policy is far away. Of course, there is a concentration of the German EU presidency on the social and economic recovery of the economy of Europe and the European member states following the pandemic. But as stronger economically and financially the EU is, the better their performance foreign policy-wise is. So this has an implication. But when you read top 6, the EU really has put itself on a more forceful EU foreign policy aspiration. And this means first, coordination with US, they stress, with UK, and then focus on Africa, which means Libya and beyond. And on critical tasks now is, and Claudia has pointed out the importance of the special UN representative is to push the issue on the diplomatic scenery in New York forward. I learned that there is a mood to appoint a US diplomat. I think this would be in favor of the EU to have an US diplomat, a strong personality to fill the UN role because the US still plays a role in Libya. Secondly, to refocus the relations with Russia and Turkey. And as you said in the beginning, Zafir, Turkey is high on the agenda of the Foreign Affairs Council meetings. Yesterday in Brussels, and also the next one, Turkey is high on the agenda. And this shows, on the one hand, the big concerns of the EU 27 foreign ministers, that there is concerns and also some annoyance because the list of conflicts we have with Turkey is long. It's not just with Libya, it is or Cyprus. It has to do with the Kurdish issue, with the Syrian issue, with the human rights, rule of law, and press freedom, and other issues, which are a long list of aspects on the Turkish-EU relations. But on the other hand, there is the awareness. Turkey is EU accession country. Turkey is NATO member. It's hosting refugees, and we want to work on this issue with Turkey. And the EU has no interest that the economic and financial crisis is hitting Turkey too much. So there is, as a point of cooperation between EU and Turkey, the upgrade or the rebuild of the customs union for more integrated and stronger economic relations between the EU and Turkey. But this means that the government of President Erdogan is addressed to offer political compromises vis-à-vis the EU. So this will be decisive in parallel with the Libyan issue. And for the EU, finally, I would say there is also a clear naming about the difficult relations we have with the United Arab Emirates and also with Egypt, as they are external partners, and Rainer will explain more on that issue. So we have to name the stakeholders and also the spoilers, and an arms embargo just to be implementing on the sea is not enough. You need to do it also on air and on borders. And to do this, the EU needs to have a stronger UN backing and lobbying in New York. And there, Germany is member of the UN Security Council. Maybe I stop here for our discussion and go further for the further statements of our panelists.
Well, thank you, Christian. It was quite interesting to see the interests, particular interests of Italy and France. On the one hand, France is more security oriented in Libya, and I have the impression in terms of cracking down jihadists, etc. And Italy is more concerned about the refugee, migrant refugee coming via the ruling area of the GNA towards Italy. So this is quite interesting. Okay.
This is also this is also an issue. You are right, Safir. But France is also suffering from illegal migration because you know the Italian. I was in Sicily and I have been witnessing how weak the local administration is in order to handle the influx of migrants and refugees.
Yes,
and if there were more EU support on the ground for the communities in southern Italy, the welcome and the integration and the further education of migrants and refugees coming from Libya could be implemented, and if the institutions in Italy are weak, you know, people illegally move from Italy then to France or further north. So it is no wonder that the EU migration and internal policy also need to have a more balanced and a more transparent EU common asylum system. It's also on the agenda of Germany, and it's and as you made the point, it's interlinked, these issues, and Berlin is very much aware about the interlinkages also in this direction. But Libya is more than human trafficking. Libya is really more. If you have really a stable and progressing Libya country, it is a host country for labor workers, especially from Libya, from Tunisia and Egypt, and this should be a direction of EU policies in the future.
Okay, thank you, Christian. I will come now to Rainer Herrmann. I'm gonna introduce him. He is a German Islamic scholar and journalist, and he studied economics from the third semester on also Islamic studies, Arabic, Persian, Turkish at the University of Freiburg in Breisgau. The University of Rennes, it's in France, or?
Rennes.
Yeah, Rennes, okay. The University of Basel and in Damascus. In Freiburg, he passed the examination for a diploma in economics and was awarded a doctorate in 1989 under Werner with a thesis about Muhammad Kurd Ali and modern Syrian intellectual history. And then he worked as an editor at the Federal Office for Foreign Trade Information in Cologne. In 1990, he was correspondent in Kuwait during the time of the Iraq invasion. From 91, he was correspondent of the previously mentioned agency in Istanbul. He retained his post when he joined the economics editorial staff of the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, and since then are you with the Frankfurter Zeitung, or Rainer? Okay, let's keep it short here. And I have the impression another very distinguished guest speaker we have here. It's a very interesting, very good team as so far from my point of view. Well. As discussed previously, due to your profound expertise on the Arab countries, we would like to, or I would like to ask you to explain us about the agenda of the countries in Libya, such as the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, and how the European Union, maybe there can you build a bridge, can include these countries not only rhetorically but effectively into the peace process. Well, and since you are very engaged in Turkey and just are now participating our webinar from Antalya in Turkey, we would like to hear also some comments from you about Turkey's engagement in Libya. The floor is yours, Rainer.
Well, thank you very much, Zafer. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the chance to be on this great panel. Well, I've lived in Abu Dhabi for 4 years, and I'm traveling to the UAE since 30 years, so that's the basis of what I'm talking about. Zafer, the short answer is the UAE and Saudi Arabia are paying the checks, and Egypt is doing the dirty work. The long answer is for the following. I start with the UAE. The second most important country in the Arab world, by asking 3 questions. First of all, how are the UAE run? Well, there are some fundamentals. It's a federation of 7 emirates. Abu Dhabi is the biggest, the richest, 6% of global oil reserves, and it's a political heavyweight. The power is in the hands of 5 of 19 sons of late Sheikh Zayed, and led by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed, who is a military pilot. We have to keep in mind that's trained in the UK. Second question, what drives Mohammed bin Zayed? He's driven by 2 obsessions. The first one is Iran. Iran is seen as a military threat, occupying 3 UAE islands. And the second one, Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, seen as an internal threat because the Ikhwan have an ideology which are seen as an alternative to the legitimacy of the ruling family there, undermining their rule. And to fight all these 2 threats, Mohammed bin Zayed, the military pilot, started to build up military, high-tech military. He bought high-tech, sophisticated weapons from the US, from France, from UK, and he brought in France, UK, and the US, offering them military bases. All that is being used for deterrence, if you look to Iran, but also with the army to fight political Islam everywhere in the Arab world. So the third question, what for is all that? Well, for not allowing the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood to take root anywhere. And in order to succeed in Libya, Mohammed bin Zayed made an alliance with France. France is giving the political coverage, the diplomatic coverage for what the UAE is doing there, and for supplying, and France is supplying weapons. And also with cooperating closely with Egypt, doing the dirty work on the ground. The UAE is too small for a country like a leader like Mohammed bin Zayed. And the ultimate aim is to establish in Libya a military dictatorship which is controlled by the forces of the so-called counter-revolution under the leadership of the UAE and Saudi Arabia. So Libya is a part of the UAE's strategy to project power in the Arab world, and by paying for Russian, French weapons, mercenary, but also supplying Sudanese mercenaries through its own Black Shield security company. So much for the UAE. Second country I can make relatively brief, because Saudi Arabia is rather less important in Libya, preoccupied with the military fiasco in Yemen, and also preoccupied with domestic politics to consolidate the rule of the crown prince. So we have to have a look at the relation, at the link between the 2 crown princes of Abu Dhabi, Mohammed bin Zayed, and Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Mohammed bin Zayed did a lot to elevate Mohammed bin Salman as crown prince of Saudi Arabia by discrediting internationally the two previous crown princes, Mukrin and Mohammed bin Nayef. Mohammed bin Zayed needs someone like Mohammed bin Salman, who is like-minded as a strong leader, because the UAE as a country is too small to do all that by its own. So if they act together, they can shape the Arab world, and that's what they are about. The most important Arab country is Saudi Arabia, and the second one is the UAE. Still, there is a king, King Salman, 85 years old. His predecessor, King Abdullah, was obsessed with the Muslim Brotherhood, also fought them, but the present King Salman had rather friendly contacts and relations with the Brotherhood while he was, over many years, half a century, governor of Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia presently, as I see it, has a rather marginal role in Libya, not so Egypt. Egypt was once the leading country in the Arab world, but relegated during Mubarak and falling even further during the regime of Sisi. The Sisi regime sees Libya as essential for its national security because of the long border, the threat of spillover, of weapons, of terror, but also of political ideas. The Brotherhood. So Egypt feels threatened, and therefore is threatening itself with intervention. And for Egypt, it is crucial to have a like-minded ruler in the neighboring country, because inside Egypt is much less stable than it seems. They have a lot of labor-related protests. Repression is more brutal than under Gamal Abdel Nasser. The pauperization is continuing, speeding up with COVID-19. Water issue, when Ethiopia is filling its dam. And also there is little confidence between the pillars of power, between the military on one hand and state security, Amna and the Mukhabarat, the intelligence on the other side. So if the situation inside is relatively fragile, you need a neighbor that is stable, that is strong, that suits your interests, in order to send back, for example, 2 million Egyptian labor, in order to have contracts there for the reconstruction of Libya. So the dirty work is to send in weapons, to do all the logistics, to do the training, and in exchange they get the checks from the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which are vital for the survival of the regime. How to bring them to the negotiation table? Well, I'll just have a brief look at the UAE and Egypt. UAE, only the French might be able to convince the UAE to change its policy. There had been a test case on that after the bloody summer of 2013 in Egypt with the coup d'etat and with the Rabaa massacre. The UAE approached the French, let's do something similar in Tunisia, because we also have to get rid of the Brotherhood there. And the French rejected outrightly. They argued, we need Tunisia as a success story, and we are afraid of a spillover there to neighboring countries such as Algeria. So in the end, the UAE accepted that the Brotherhood became a part of the political system in Tunisia. Concerning Egypt, well, Egypt has suggested a peace plan beginning of June, ceasefire, peace talks in Geneva, dismantling militias, mercenaries, having a democratically elected presidential committee. All this supported by France, by Russia. Is it serious? No. Because it's a project to win time and to save warlord Haftar. I think the litmus test for the seriousness in Libya is to give up the warlord and to give priority to a civilian solution. However, you need to give Egypt something to hand in, to give its hand to a compromise. For example, political assurances that Aguila Saleh, the speaker in the parliament in Tobruk, can be something like a bulwark against the brotherhood in a new Libya, or also economic benefits, giving 2 million Egyptian laborers the chance to return to Libya, or giving significant contracts in construction. Well, the question for me is Egypt then ready to sacrifice the territorial unity of Libya in case it cannot impose its will? Is it willing to accept the falling apart into the east and the west of the country? I'm sure Egypt will continue to insist on a buffer zone which will protect its western border. But I don't see any significant chance for Egypt to bring in, not in the case as the UAE, where the French has an impact. Maybe Russia, and I hope we still can talk about Russia, because they also have a say. And for me, it's also a conflict between Russia and Turkey, what we have on the battlefield in Libya. So much from me for the moment.
Thank you, Rainer. I mean, it was for me very interesting to see the specific agendas and interests of the countries in the on the Arab sides, and I didn't know that the French and they could convince that they support Tunisia, the moderate brotherhood. So
they didn't support it, but they just said let the videos of that. It's becoming too dangerous.
It's kind of a support not to intervene and to crack down them, you know. That's it's kind of but you're right. And well, I mean, you are totally right. We have to discuss also about Russia. Maybe Murat Aslan, he is also very familiar with the Russian role. He can tell us something, but let me first explain something or introduce him as well. Murat Aslan graduated from the War College on the field of management in 1991. He assumed varying tasks and appointments in Turkish armed forces. He attended and graduated from master's program and 2010 and PhD program 2017 in the International Relations Department of the Middle Eastern Technical University. He preferred to be retired in February from the military service, I suppose, to be involved in academic studies. He is accepted to the position of assistant professor in Hasan Kalyoncu University in Gaziantep after he gave lectures in Bashkent and Hasan Kalyoncu universities. He focused on power, intelligence, and propaganda conceptualizations and practices in the field of defense and security studies. It's gonna work, you know. It will help us. So in the discussion regarding the Libyan conflict, he's currently teaching in Hasan Kalyoncu University and is researcher in security studies directorate of SETA. So Murat, that's how I introduced you. And well, as I mentioned, maybe. I had initially the idea that you explain us a little bit more about motivation agenda of Turkey in Libya, and as a matter of fact, not only Libya itself is at stake in Turkish foreign policy, but also geopolitics in Eastern Mediterranean Sea is paramount, which is linked, of course, also somehow with the with the agreements with the Libyan government. And well, and in that context, would be also good to if you could touch upon on the specifics on the economic impact, geopolitical impact of the bilateral agreements between Turkey and GNA. And as Rainer just raised up the issue, maybe could you also tell us about the Russian policy, strategy, and agenda in Libya? I know it's a lot of a bunch of topics, as it was with Claudia's as well. But please try to work it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Zafer. Actually, I was introduced to Libyan issue 2.5 years ago.
Yes.
And I had started a project on security sector reform in Libya, and they purposely selected me because first I was a former soldier. Second thing, somebody who doesn't have any bias towards any party in Libya had to, design a structure and propose it, and I did it. We had conducted 30 workshops with many Libyans, distinguished Libyans, who were expert in security field. And
in Libya or in Turkey?
Some of them are in Libya, some of them are in Tunis, and mostly they were in Ankara. We invited them, and they honored us. And we concluded it. We suggested a report on how we can conduct security sector reform in Libya. But right after concluding the report, we witnessed the attack of Haftar to Tripoli on 9th of April 2019. Well, we had to freeze the overall project for a while. That's right. And I studied politics apart from security sector afterwards. Perception matters, interests matters, and usually you have to be aware of the objectives, agendas, and capabilities of all involving actors if any crisis erupts. And Libya is not exception for that. If you ask what most countries do want in Libya, they will, prefer saying, okay, a strong state that will prevent, illegal immigration, smuggling, or blah, blah. But what type of strong state? That's the essential question. I mean, a strong state with a regime that is loyal to some certain countries, or a strong state which is designed by political norms, by democratic norms, and sustainable, as Claudia underlines. I think we need a strong state, but also with democratic norms, and also a country that fulfills the responsibility of a state in the Middle East that could be a kind of format for the others. And that's the importance of the current Libyan crisis. Once you allow any party in Libya who forcefully built a regime that is not favoring the people but the external actors, that means it will work only for the external states, external dynamics. But if you build a country which addresses the problems, real problems of the country, and assumes responsibility pending to democratic norms, that means it will provide safety, security, and welfare, prosperity for the Libyan people. Okay, that's ideal, but let's go to the facts then. The first issue, if you are asking Turkish position for Libya, the first issue we have to deal is Eastern Mediterranean Sea. What I believe is that France, Greece, Russia, even the United States, or European Union in general, are all, concerned for Libya, for the problems, future problems in Eastern Mediterranean Sea. You should take out first energy politics in the region, and now we can understand why all these countries are in Libya. On the other hand, if you take energy politics by itself, it's not adequate. We have to be aware of the social, political dynamics. Let's go to, for instance, social dynamics. Libya, as Christian underlined, has a social system based on tribes. And some portion of these tribes are living in Egypt. If you go to the southern part, Tabus and Tuaregs, they are, divided between Libya and Chad or Niger. If you go to the west, mainly southwest of Libya, you can easily observe the interlinkage of Algerians with Libyans over there. And please be aware that there is no clearly demarcated borderline at the south of Libya. That means it's a potential crisis maybe in future. So if there's a intertwined social structure along the borders, then the problems can easily be exaggerated and shaped for the benefits of the external actors. Let me give you an example for that. The basic and the most important feature of Libya is its status of being a gate for Africa. Then you can understand why France is so aggressive, because once Libya is lost, that means France will depend on Algeria's initiative to reach, Western Africa, Central Africa. If you just go through the dynamics at the Eastern Mediterranean Sea and the latest memorandum between Turkey and Libya about the delimitation of exclusive economic zone, now you can understand why Greece was so eager to support Haftar, or is in close consultation with Akila Salih. And Greece decided to open a consulate in Benghazi, and it has different meanings. And if you go through Libyan people, another dimension and social dimension along with Eastern Mediterranean issue, most Libyans does have a house in Istanbul, or some of them have in London, but most of them do have a house in Istanbul. That means there is a bridge between Misrata, Tripoli, and also Benghazi with Turkey, and they are just in close communication. That's the social aspect of Turkish involvement. And you can also easily visit, historical facts. 1911 is the date that Libya was annexed to Italy, and it has a kind of, memory in Turkish minds, but it's not adequate to mobilize Turkish involvement to Libya currently. Let's go to, geopolitics. Okay. The memorandum that I have mentioned is very important because it cut enosis. That means the dream of uniting Cyprus with Greece now is a dream. Because right after this memorandum, now Libya and Turkey has built a kind of wall just in the mid of Mediterranean Sea. And I know that it's not acceptable for the Total, for the multinational energy companies of the other countries, and also Greece. Then the question appears if geopolitics is still arising from the natural geographical features or created barriers. So we see that now we create barriers in the current modern world, and geopolitics is created anymore by means of such agreements. Another dimension that Turkey is concerned is about the regime security. Well, I said perception. What Turkey believes is that Sisi is a project, as Claudia mentioned. Yes, Sisi is a project of Eastern Mediterranean Sea. That's clear. He popped up by a military intervention. The elections are not that much fair and transparent, and we have a leader. And now, right after Egypt, if you witnessed another regime change by means of Haftar or anybody else, Haftar is just a figure, that means there will be a diffusion of regimes favored by certain countries at the north of Africa and also towards the Middle East, And historically, coup d'etats and interventions to the regimes is a burden for Turkish democracy, and it will be perceived as a threat. That's reality. If you go to the threats after 1950s in Turkey, people easily will recall the memories of that time. So another regime change in Libya will frustrate the Turkish perception for the coming period for a long time, and Turkey then feels to intervene, not directly, but indirectly. Another issue, depending on this regime change strategy, future designation of the Middle East is important. As you can remember, Condoleezza Rice had suffered some words about the newly designed countries in the Middle East. I think the number was 44, something like that. I don't remember exactly. Then, if you redraw the Sykes-Picot Agreement in the Middle East, but with a mentality of another Sykes-Picot-like individual or individuals, then it's a challenge for the current status quo of the state system in the Middle East. So are you ready to tolerate such kind of change currently? I don't think so. And let's focus on a bit to Libya. What was the picture when Haftar attacked Tripoli? The first issue, and it's a reality, if you once attack initially, that means you're aggressor. And Haftar attacked. Second thing, if you go through the picture in Libya regarding constitution making and political process, there was a kind of road achieved because they were discussing a constitution, drafting a constitution for many years, and they had agreed on it for a referendum. And as you remember, there was a meeting in Dubai with Serraj and Haftar, and later then Haftar suddenly popped up and attacked. That means the desired Libyan state, which was a product of Libyan people and legitimate, was challenged by a general of Libya. So another issue, political progress. I remember one, workshop of Libyans that I had participated. They were discussing which had to come first, constitutional referendum or political elections. And this issue was somehow a question in the minds. And I was happy because either of them, doesn't matter which one is achieved first, is a good step to build a Libya. And what happened? They first concluded, constitution. So shall we allow Haftar-like individuals in Libya to overcome a political process like this and repeat the same thing afterwards, or continue to, implement it? Another issue, I don't want to take much more time, sorry for that. International law. International law. Well, international law is very clear. Either about Eastern Mediterranean Sea, either about Libya, or any other problem in the region. If you once start something that is against law, that means you are responsible. And what is expected from the UN Security Council, and all members of the international community is to react it. Unfortunately, up until now, legitimacy and international law in Libya has been suffering, because if you once visit Security Council, it's France who provides support to Haftar and United Arab Emirates as a member of Security Council. So how can you trust it? If you go to Russia's position, as you have asked, well, Russia is on the ground with a private company, and sometimes denouncing, okay, they are Russians, though they are private company, not assuming, responsibility of being a state, but still a member of the Security Council. Then the question comes, should we rely on international law or start a self-help system to provide our own security at the Eastern Mediterranean Sea? If all actors respect international law, I think there's no need military activism. But if you once attempt to revise borders and provide support to revisionist actors in the region, that means everybody will be involved for their benefits, maximizing their benefits. And final issue, Russia. Okay, if you ask me, Russia, you have to build a relation with Syria and Libya. Today, you can't divert Syrian crisis with Libyan crisis. Why? The first issue, United Arab Emirates started pumping money to Syrian regime. And that means now the sponsor of either Libyan crisis and Syrian crisis, appears to be the same country. The second thing, the dream of Russians is step up Mediterranean Sea, hot seas. This is an historical objective. And now, after Latakia and Hmeimim Air Base in Syria, now they have a footstep in Libya.
Yes.
Okay, it's not clear yet. They want to have a basing right over there, and you can't deport once they establish a base. And the general accusation is about Turkish cooperation with Russia. I want to make some clear statements on that. Turkey and Russia is negotiating, established a diplomatic link by means of Astana process. That's reality. But it's not because the desire of cooperation, but the reality of the playground. If you once is not, if you are not supported by your allies on the ground, that means you have to create a kind of balance in the region. And when the United States started to support PKK at the east of Euphrates River, then what should Turkey do? Must build a kind of balanced system in Syria. And now in Libya, Turkey attempts to do the same thing. Yesterday, Putin and Erdogan had a phone call and they discussed it. But that doesn't mean cooperation. That is the requirement of being an actor in a crisis. Otherwise, the conflict will escalate and escalate, and you can't control it. Because to the final extent, the capacity of the country will determine to what extent it will act on the ground. And Turkey is well aware of her capacities. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Murat. Just a short question, please. Short answer. What will happen in Jufra and Sirte?
Okay.
Will the Russians, Turks, will they agree on? Will come to a conclusion, an agreement? What will happen? What is your assessment?
The importance of Sirte and Jufra is that it's a shield for the oil crescent. Oil Crescent provides 60% of the oil revenue of Libyan central bank. And apart from this area, as you know, Sharara and fuel oil feeds provide 40% of the oil revenue. Now, both of them are under the control of the Russian mercenaries, along with Haftar's forces. If you once accept this status quo, that means Tripoli will be dependent on the money that will be allowed by Haftar, and vice versa, because central bank will receive the money and will transfer it to Haftar. So if you once accept that status quo, that means there is no solution. We should expect another crisis in the coming year. I believe that Sirte and Jufra issue will be somehow solved, not by political means, but militarily. Otherwise, Tripoli government will evaporate there will be no political process, and Haftar will be more eager to attack to the other parts of Libya.
Okay, thank you, Murat. It was really very compassing the situation over there from the as Turkey as actor to see there what's going on, and also the counterbalancing or cooperation cooperation due to the realities on the ground between Russia and Turkey is quite interesting to listen to that. So we have we close the first part, and just I would like to, I think since we have no urgent questions, I will close with a short question for each of you, and we'll have a conclusional statement, and then we'll close our webinar. Claudia, you're still online, yes, or?
I'm here.
Hi, Claudia. Hi. Look, I just want to ask you a short last question. I'm really interested in your experience during your time as a policy advisor to Mr. Salami. Can you tell us something, nothing secret, but some interesting aspects of it?
I think UN envoys and officials in their positions
yes.
have their patience strongly tested when they landed. I've met all of them over the years since 2012, and there's a general tendency to arrive and think that you will make a difference for the better. You will persuade the actors to write a peace deal, or change the path of Libya into democracy and so on, and they all leave in a much worse situation than when they arrive. I've seen various formats for negotiations all fail one after another, and I do not envy whoever will be the next envoy. The lesson learned is arrive with modest expectations and try to build up from there. But it is a bucket full of problems internally and externally, and with the UN and with the UN bureaucracy, internal UN bureaucracy as well.
Yeah, great, interesting, very to hear it from you. But he was really, in a way, very disappointed, or so not being able to reach progress there, to progress on the issue. And when always he tries something, Haftar was starting to with attacking, etc., and vice versa. It's,
yes, it becomes personal.
Yeah, exactly, as you mentioned. Thank you so much. Well, and I'm gonna ask the next one, Christian. Coming back to your statement, I mean, what would be very curious for me is what do you see a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to Germany's role in coordinating a united position within the European Union towards Libya?
You see that I am really thinking. From my personal character setup, I'm an optimistic person. And I wanted to build on what Claudia said regarding Ghassan Salamé. I think the importance of UN envoy Ghassan Salamé was that he has been acting in Syria on the ground, and he has been talking to all stakeholders on the ground. And this made up his importance. And he was in April up to set up this big town hall with all local stakeholders in order to push a Libyan-grown and Libyan-led political process. Here we should get back to it. That has a lot to do with the strength of the United Nations. And here I add your questions, Afil. Germany is in a very delicate situation because it needs to show teeth politically, diplomatically, because it is responsible for the for the Berlin process, and it needs to work internally in the EU. It has some stakes because there are in parallel negotiations on the recovery fund for the EU. There are in parallel negotiations for the financial framework for the next 7 years that gives room of compromise maneuver vis-à-vis France and Italy. And so I am optimistic because the fear that what Murat explained to us and Claudia, that there is a risk of further escalation in Libya, gives a push to the diplomatic tool to get Germany in the driving force to really go back to the Berlin process and show, yes, we have started something correctly in January, and we need to really show that we are able to lead the process.
Okay, thank you, Christian. I will go to Rainer. Rainer, so there you are. Who is gonna say UAE? Stop it and don't make your own agenda coming and turmoiling everything over there. What is your opinion? How to deal with the United Arab Emirates? To discipline
they will be very difficult to stop. They have a lot of money, and they have a political agenda. They have a political will. And they don't behave always as the Saudis want to. For example, in Yemen, they separated.
Yes. Yes.
The UAE sometimes is in a country involved in military terms, sometimes diplomatically, but they have really they are the second most important country. We are a power. Until now, we only saw Dubai. Well, Dubai became a trademark, but was taken over then by Abu Dhabi. And Mohammed bin Zayed really changed the agenda of the UAE, because late Sheikh Zayed was rather a person like Atatürk, saying peace at home, peace in the world. And so, well, he did not interfere somewhere else. But this Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed, well, wants to change the Arab world according to his own wishes. And when we look to the Arab, well, when we want to solve the Libyan question, we have to see that this is interconnected into what we observe in the Arab world. We have in the Arab world stable states. We have failed states, we have failing states that are not as stable as look like. And these few very stable states, they take the opportunity they have in the vacuum, and they rather accept a frozen conflict than to surrender to Turkey. And therefore, without having a problem in Ankara and Abu Dhabi, it will be very difficult to contain the UAE appetite for more power in the region.
Okay, I see. Well, then I would say we had the webinar with the title "The European Union under Germany's Presidency: A Real Chance for De-escalation, Restarting the UN Peace Process in Libya." Hope is still there, but we have to be realistic. That for in the foreseeable time, that there will be not a push from the European Union to lead the Libyan conflict in a very de-escalatory way. So we hope that also for the sake of the people in Libya, that they are suffering, that very soon that they will reach de-escalation, and the UN peace process will restart, hopefully. And I really thank my guests, outstanding, distinguished guests. I have learned a lot, and thank you and hope that I can host sometime again you distinguished guests here, and wish you a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for